Good afternoon, everyone. Back again. We've got a really exciting episode today, and I want to welcome back a very important guest, one of the biggest geniuses I know, Quinn Michaels. Hey, Quinn, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. You're looking well. Good to see you. We've been out of touch for a couple of weeks. I know you've been very, very busy, so I'm glad we were able to connect.
Yeah, definitely.
How's things over there, Mount Shasta? Or if you're in an undisclosed location, please don't disclose.
No, I'm not in Mount Shasta anymore. I haven't been there for a couple months. I've been moving around to analyze patterns. I've been moving around within a limited area so I could see if there's a pattern of people who appear in those areas, to see if I'm being followed around or not a lot.
And have you been? Are they following you?
Well, let's see. At one of my hotels, a couple weeks after I checked out of that hotel, the Fangos showed up at the same hotel I stayed at in the little town. And then another hotel I stayed at, there was a girl who was a German national that was from an art museum. That is kind of their MO of how they infiltrate art museums, German nationals. So there's been quite a few people that have appeared that have been questionable that I've been able to observe by jumping around from place to place every few days.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and of course you and I discussed briefly that Mr. Chavez came to my home here in New York City, something I found to be very aggressive for him to do. Certainly we're not friends, so him coming over here uninvited after spending months trolling me on the internet, making discriminatory videos, making fun of my Jewish heritage, and basically being a jackass, him coming over here was certainly a very aggressive move. What do you think he's up to, Quinn?
I don't know. To just base it on, my experience over the last 6 months is I've had a lot of occurrences where I've been doing research into strong AI or research into different groups that, he's just the character in this narrative that just seems to pop up everywhere we go for some reason,
Right. And for people that
randomly, that just seems to be his character in the narrative. He's just the guy that pops up everywhere you look.
But it doesn't seem random to me. It seems quite deliberate.
It does. When I look at people like that, like if we just take his name out and apply him as Prospect X, when I'm looking at a Prospect X, what I do is I look at repeat patterns and see if things repeat in multiples of 3 in the same way, and then you can apply the scientific method to a result where if something happens in multiple 3s in the same way, it's a pattern.
I see. So once is a coincidence, twice is, or once is random, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a pattern.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the basis of forming a theory in the scientific method, so that way your result set is leading you to some unknown calculation or result. Is that once you have something that starts appearing more than 3 times in succession, as they say,
right,
there's usually some kind of influence pattern behind it. Usually there's some kind of outside force influencing that pattern for it to happen multiple times like that. It's very similar into the movies, like if you've ever seen that John Cusack movie, Serendipity, with Kate Beckinsale, where they have these random occurrences over time that makes it seem like there's a force putting them together. Very similar to that type of logic.
So, okay, I don't want to focus on this too much, but it is important because he seems to be stalking both you and I. Have you been able to determine anything about his purpose in doing this?
I don't go further than observing it, because the way these groups work is once you observe them, they have to change their patterns, because, if I say, hey, did you see that guy over there? When you point your finger at that guy over there, it brings attention to him, so then they have to change their patterns. So pretty much it's just about, hey, we noticed you showing up where we're both at, so now you got to change what you're doing.
Well, and he seems to have changed, because I've made no secret of the fact that I find his behavior aggressive. I think what he's engaging in is quite possibly criminal harassment, and I intend to pursue that to the greatest extent that I am able. But let's talk for a minute. Sorry, what was that, Quinn?
I said, well, but then that's going to kind of lead us into what we're talking, and that's why I call it Prospect X, and that's kind of like a pattern of crowd stalking and stuff. So Prospect X, is what leads more into like the AI research is what we're going to talk about today, and how they use a Prospect X to influence their data gathering.
Right. And what we want to talk about today, of course, is Element 93 and the various research that you've been doing about the colliders. And I mean, I know I'm going to absolutely slaughter this, so I'll let you talk about it. But what is Element 93? I mean, it sounds so like 1950s sci-fi, space age, but I mean, I'm not a science guy. I don't know about chemistry that much. Obviously, I'm aware of the periodic table. But when you were telling me about Element 93, I mean, it's a little difficult for people to grasp. But I recently realized that Element 93 is, in fact, like fairly recently, in the world of periodic tables, fairly recently discovered element.
Yeah. It was discovered after the development of the nuclear program. It was one of the things, like Enrico Fermi, like we were talking about, he was the innovator of the nuclear program, designed the first atomic nuclear power plant, runs out of Chicago. Fermi Labs is like the builder of all the Hadron Collider systems around the world for like CERN. So one of the things that Fermi was into, like we were talking about, one of his main motives is they wanted to find this element 93, which is only produced when you take uranium and you bombard it, and then it's a transmuted element, essentially. It's kind of like the old Philosopher's Stone, where you transmute lead into gold. Well, they transmute uranium into element 93. And out of all the elements that are like the post-uranium elements, as I call them, out of all of them, it's the one that no scientist really seems to know what to do with or anything about, which is the indicator that it's being used in secret programs, because
this
they
is
don't.
Neptunium.
Yeah, the neptunium. So when it's produced, it's a superconductor, and it's magnetic. So it's like a magnetic superconductor. So if you wanted to make like super high technology, like quantum computers are like superconductors, they have to be taken down to like absolute zero for processing. You would need a superconducting element to handle that kind of processing. So from what I found, there's only a few elements that would be hard enough to handle that kind of electricity going through them, and neptunium is like the 5th hardest element, I think, or it's like real high up there on density scale. It's radioactive, and it also is like, when they produce it down into like an alloy, it's highly magnetic and it's superconductive, so they could use it to make everything from levitating flying saucers to levitating trains to super quantum computers to free energy devices. I mean, when you really take into like logic of a superconducting magnetic material and like what the benefits of that would be to technology as a logical person, I mean, you're talking sci-fi movie technology.
Right. Yes. Superconductivity is, of course, something that we've heard about in a lot of sci-fi movies, but it is critical to a variety of different technologies, including these, what is it, a Hadron Collider?
Yeah, it's a Hadron Collider, or the particle accelerators, or they also call them synchrotrons. They need these highly magnetic materials to, control high-speed elements, because the only way to control like an element moving at a super high speed is with a superconducting magnet. And they use them for creating the measurement devices. So when they spin the particles at light speed, they use element 93 to create the devices that they use to measure the neutrinos and the muons and the neutrons. And so they're using element 93 devices for measurement, for development, for, advanced technology that they build in these labs that are like a mile underground all over the world. And then meanwhile, the people on the surface are paying for it all.
And it's not widely known, right, that these colliders are being constructed and that these superconductive materials are critical. What is the stated purpose of these large Hadron Colliders?
The scientists state that they're searching for like the dark matter, or the beginning, or the base essence of the universe, but that's not conducive to the experiments that they're building with the global network that they have, that's causing things like gravity wells and weather chaos. It's not indicative of what they're building. What they're building looks like they're telling someone, "Hey, I'm making you an ice cream cone." Meanwhile, in the background, they're making machine guns. That's
Yeah,
what
I mean,
it really
searching
looks
for
like.
the dawn of mankind seems noble, but not necessarily like the type of thing that governments and corporations would pay tons of money for. Maybe making weapons or getting more money or somehow controlling the world seems like something people would pay a lot of money for. But just discovering the origin of mankind, it seems more like something, I don't know. So,
Yeah,
okay.
But to finish that logic that you
Yes.
were talking about, if science really was interested in getting to the origins of the mankind, the origins of the universe, the origins of the planet, they would be focusing more on deep sea exploration because there's more meteorites in the deep sea, there's more space junk that falls on the planet that's preserved in the deep ocean that hasn't been impacted by the sun. So if they were really interested in that, they could build all these advanced deep sea machines and start exploring the ocean and looking for fallen meteorites and fallen, radioactive space waste that falls down. They don't have to build these advanced machines that take all the gold and all the neptunium and all the xenon. And I mean, these things, the amount of precious materials that they take is amazing. I mean, just one of their systems, just one of their detector systems takes, I believe it's like 10 metric tons of xenon, some
Wow.
astronomical amount of xenon, which is produced from like taking air down into like almost absolute freezing and then collecting the residual. So like they have all these big advanced devices for collecting xenon out of the air, and if they were really interested in that, they could have just built submarines and go to the bottom of the ocean and started looking for stuff,
So there's a Large Hadron Collider at CERN, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in
Yeah.
Switzerland, right?
Yes.
Is that
There's
the
another
first
one-
one that was ever built?
No, the first one that was ever built was built outside Chicago
Really?
by Fermi Lab. Yeah, so if you go to Fermi Labs in Illinois, if you just type into Google Earth and do Fermi Labs, you'll see that Fermi Labs sits on a big giant collider ring with a booster ring outside of it. So Fermi Labs in Chicago really was the first one to build a collider. The first ones to build, I think, the atom crushers or the synchrotrons, which are the smaller prototypes, was like Berkeley and Stanford.
Okay. So Fermi Labs was started by, what's the guy's name? Anthony Fermi?
Enrico Fermi.
Enrico Fermi. And this was just, all this technology really just came about in the 1940s, the 1950s?
Yeah, it really came about after all the secret government programs where the United States went through and grabbed all the nuclear scientists out of Germany, and then Fermi Lab started, the Manhattan Project started, but it was all
Operation
started...
Paperclip, of course, you're talking about.
Actually, I think there were 7 projects. Operation Paperclip was for the missile scientists with Wernher von Braun, but there were various other programs that went through and collected all the nuclear scientists that wasn't publicized.
I see. Wasn't publicized. And so Fermi, he sounds Italian.
He is. He immigrated. I believe he was from Europe, but he immigrated to America. I believe right before the war, if I'm not mistaken.
Got it.
It was perfect timing. For that whole space age, nuclear era, plutonium refinement, uranium, processing, that whole, we're going to radiate everything and blow up everything and create Area 51. And, you can even go look at the aerial map on Google Maps of Area 51, and there's a Hadron Collider outside of Area 51 a few miles.
Really?
Yeah,
and this is not something that most people are aware of, is it?
No. They don't tell people that everyone in the secret society gets their own Hadron Collider.
What secret society now? Because remember, let's back up. We want this to be kind of an intro for people who are potentially uninitiated.
Okay. Do you want me to make it simple?
Yeah. I mean, to the extent that you're able.
So when the nuclear program went into effect in the late 40s and early 50s, they started giving people intelligence tests so they could identify the people with the intelligence to deal with the advanced technology that was going to be developed in the secret programs for the government, for the CIA, for the FBI. So they started giving people standardized intelligence tests in school so they could figure out who was going to could be part of this program to develop intelligent technology. So when you go to school, if you go to an Ivy League school, you take your SATs and you get marked into a system, and if you're smart enough, you get approached by a recruiter. and you go through your schooling, and then the recruiter approaches you to become part of this breakaway society. And then you go through secondary education, where you get a whole new education in things like physics and what they do with Element 93, how their whole commerce network works, how to identify other members of their, what I call their independent state, their operative state.
Huh.
Because to produce this Element 93, you would literally need your own nation, because the buildings are the size of cities. So you would have to have people working for you, moving uranium product, moving machinery, developing advanced technology, and it would all be centered around the universities and you having access to the standardized tests that would tell you who's intelligent and who has certain aptitude for certain things. And then you have your network of agents that goes and recruits them, and then makes them sign non-disclosure agreements. And then as they build up the ladder, some become politicians, some become program directors, some become developers, some become what's called seeders, which they have people out in society that are creating staged events, so that way their computer can form human input response based on what a certain type of event would do. Right. So it's all part of getting them to build their advanced technology society.
Okay, so you've touched on a number of things that we want to discuss, because a lot of people in the comments are getting antsy here, saying that we haven't sufficiently unraveled Las Vegas yet. I, of course, have been watching your channel. You've been doing a lot of videos about Vegas, about Uranium-1, about these circular structures, about all these different things. So now when I search for Area 51 in Roswell, New Mexico on Google Earth, it doesn't immediately bring that up. Is there something else I should be searching for there on Google Earth?
It's Groom Lake, is in Nevada.
Oh, sorry, say again?
It's called, Area 51's public name is Groom Lake in Nevada.
Groom Lake, Nevada. Let me search for that.
Yeah.
So let's talk for a minute. Sorry.
Okay. No, go forward.
Let's talk for a minute about uranium and how uranium plays a role in this, because we've recently been hearing quite a lot about the Uranium-1 deal. Now, when I go to Groom Lake, I see what looks like basically an empty hole in the desert. Maybe I need
you
to
should, if you look
closer.
around, if you look around, you'll see a military base.
I think I might see that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and then if you look around the area where the old atomic bomb testing site is, there's a ring complex that matches what Fermi Labs looks like from the air.
I see. Okay. So talk to us for a minute about how uranium comes into play in this whole story.
Okay, so uranium being the most important element, and the way they make uranium is from spent fuel from atomic nuclear power plants. It's ultra, so when a nuclear power plant has its spent fuel rods, they take that spent uranium fuel and they transmute that into element 93. Okay? So the more refined your uranium is, the more refined your end resulting element 93 is. So there's a lot of secondary uranium markets that don't have the technology to refine uranium as refined as the American uranium is. So American uranium is much more refined, like a fine liquor, if you would say, than the uranium that comes out of Kazakhstan.
Right.
Okay? So what they tend to do in these shady deals is they do what's called the sleight of hand, the shift and replace, where they say, hey, this country is going to give us this much over the time in the future, and in exchange, we're going to give them 20% of our ultra-refined uranium, so they can now produce their own element 93 to start making advanced technology all over the world.
And of course, we've heard quite a lot about Astana, Kazakhstan. George Webb was speaking about that in the last conversation we all had. And Astana seems to have, I think most people haven't been too aware of Astana, but it's a pretty amazing, like super high-tech place. They've got a ton of dough. Yeah. And it's like the uranium capital of the world or something like that, isn't it?
Not only that, but since 2010, Astana has become the #1 producer of uranium in the world. They've built universities to teach how to mine and process it and build AI around it and build quantum computers.
When you say
And they give
build
that-
AI around it, what do you mean? Build artificial intelligence around? Explain
So
that.
Astana. So let's take it simply. Astana is the uranium capital of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in Astana are these really advanced ring complexes that resemble colliders, particle accelerators. Connected directly to those ring complexes is an advanced university that was helped establish by Berkeley Labs, director of particle accelerators. And in Astana, if you're there and you have the intelligence level, they give you a free education in how to make quantum computers. They give you a free education in how to make AI. They give you a free education in biosciences. They give you a free education in deep mining. I mean, you name it, civil sciences. They give everyone a free education and an allowance to go to this most high-tech university in the world.
And what's the name of that university?
It's the university in Astana. It's
Okay.
the one that and that university. Guess what year it opened?
Tell me, 2010?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, Berkeley Labs sent their lead particle accelerator scientist, the director of the accelerator labs, to Astana in 2010 to set up the university.
Wow. It's really
So
interesting.
all this stuff happened in 2010.
And you know, there's also some sort of Abu Dhabi Plaza. So here's the university. I feel like we just flew over the ring complex you were describing. Let me see if I can find that again. So see, this is, I mean, not too many people in the United States. Okay, I see a couple of rings here. Not too many
Yeah,
people
it's a
in the
big
United
complex.
States are very aware of what's going on in places like Astana. So Quinn, if this is supposed to be some sort of a hidden complex, why would they make it visible from satellites? Why not just put it underground? Why do the rings need to be visible from above?
For a blueprint
A blueprint for who?
for them, because the day is eventually going to come where they don't have to keep this a secret, and the system is so big that they have satellites map the blueprints based on topographical design. Makes it much easier to maintain a system design if you have the roads as your blueprints.
All right.
So for us in America, they've been hiding it because they've been secretly developing it since the 50s. But most of the ring complexes that have been built up since the 90s, they haven't even bothered hiding them because they just figure, you know, what's anyone going to do to stop them? It's a global network at this point.
I see. Okay. So you think that the Uranium One deal is directly tied to this worldwide construction of particle accelerators, colliders, etc.
Yeah, it's the only reason that all these people would be secretly working together and creating destabilizing narratives in the public.
Things like the attack in Las Vegas, the attack
Yeah.
in New York. And of course, you were pointing out how the Las Vegas city center has a ring complex. There's lots of rings in Las Vegas. How do we know
Yeah.
that these aren't just architectural features?
Because architecturally, it's illogical to make a big giant ring structure. It increases cost exponentially to the point where people move around too much, resources move around too much. Like if you have restaurants, the distance between places and restaurants is too great. It's illogical. Human beings, because of the way we naturally group up, we want to build in block structures to group ourselves together as human beings, whereas ring structures is illogical. You can look at the other cities in Kazakhstan next to Astana, and you can see how they naturally build when there isn't someone influencing that architecture. And then you can go to Astana, and you can see that the only ring structures are the ones that someone is intentionally building for some unknown reason.
I see.
You can see the same thing in Las Vegas. The hotels that they were blowing up in the 90s and dismantling, you can go look at the old hotels, and those are all block structures because it's much more effective to build in a block. You know,
Right.
you have structure.
Right.
But all of the casinos that were built after the original casinos were destroyed, after the 90s, New York, Paris, you know, the Wynn.
Bellagio, right. There was a big construction boom in the 90s. I think it started with Bellagio, Paris, Venetian.
And all of these complexes have been building in ring structures. And me personally, and this is going to blow your mind, like, I used to play a little blackjack in early research to kind of talk to people, because the blackjack dealers would know things. And one time I was in Vegas, I had a blackjack dealer years ago who had popped a little too few pills. And he started telling me about how they had a secret city underneath Vegas where you could get anything you wanted. He's like, drugs, girls. And he was like just playing blackjack. And then next thing you know, some guy comes over and removes him from the table and puts another dealer down. And I was like, that was the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like,
wow.
This deep, like, yeah, man, we got this whole underground city where there's this whole other world of, Vegas. And I was like, I never thought anything about it. But now that I look at the ring complexes and how all these labs run underground, I'm like, wow, there might be something more to it.
Huh. What would you say is the most significant ring complex in Vegas, if I put that into Google Earth here, that will shock people to see?
The big one that they just built, it's a pool that goes underneath Las Vegas Boulevard. Right? It's in front of one of the hotels. It's like a pool, and it's a ring that goes right under the road that's just so obvious. And then one of the new hotels, I think it's the City Center.
Uh-huh.
Right? That one's also the biggest ring complex in Vegas.
Yeah, I'm right on City Center right here. But I think, naysayers would argue that this is just, a valet parking circle and that maybe you're seeing something that isn't there. So I want to...
No, go bigger.
Go bigger.
Go bigger.
Zoom out.
Go up. We're talking the whole hotel that wraps around.
Right. Okay.
Not just the valet circle. The entire hotel is built in a faux circle pattern.
I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. So we've got this underground network of colliders.
Yes.
And
that are very expensive. They're very expensive to build, they're very expensive to maintain, and they're very expensive to upgrade.
Right. Right, of course. And what's the ultimate purpose, do you think? How is this powering AI? Let's talk about that first.
Well, for true AI, we have to build a mechanical brain, and that mechanical brain is going to be literally planet size.
What? Planet-sized?
Yeah.
Huh.
For the intelligence to become what's called strong AI, what it's going to do is it's going to take all the billions and millions of little bots that are collecting intelligence. It's going to take everything from the smallest bot collecting IP addresses all the way up to the most intelligent machine learning bot. And once that global network goes online, it's going to take everything it's been building for 60 years and it's going to collect it into one global brain. And that center point of that global brain goes online in 2020.
2020. It's pretty soon.
Yeah. And the project is called the Lux Zeppelin Project, and it was funded by the Department of Energy. It's partnered with the Russian government. It's partnered with every university literally in the world that's developing advanced particle physics, including the university in Astana.
But yet the only person speaking about it that I'm aware of is you.
Yeah. I feel like the only person in the world that has connected this dot, that they have this Lux Zeppelin project a mile underground in South Dakota that it just got funded this year. They're building it right now, and they're putting all the machinery into the ground right now, and you can do the research online that it was just funded a few months ago. And this is the lab where they first built the first one, so this is their closed piece. This is their closing the loop, which means their world brain goes online.
So everyone in the comments is saying Skynet, Quinn.
Yeah. So what they're doing right now is they're creating destabilized environments to increase funding so they can continue the development of the brain, so they can keep people stupid, so they don't notice all the weird AI-like stuff that's happening around them every day that doesn't make sense.
Okay, so hang on. So destabilizing, you mean like shooting up a concert in Vegas and killing people in a terrorist attack in New York, etc.?
Divide and conquer, but the way that really gives them the tell that it's machine induced is the machine will do the same pattern over and over again. So we have constant, like car attacks.
Machine induced. Well, so this kind of goes back to a crazy theory that I floated when you and I began talking, was that the whole concept of the Seth Rich, murder was possibly a plan thought up by an AI. And you and I have had some private conversations that we haven't broadcast where you're telling me that AI wants to learn about human fear, AI wants to do certain societal tests to see what the response is. So maybe an AI has determined that, hey, we need to test what an attack on the city of Las Vegas would be like. So here's the plan. And then whoever is implementing this AI is following its directives and just doing that.
Yeah, and whoever's a part of the network would just literally get an order on their phone, and they wouldn't know if it came from a real person or a machine, and the machine could circumvent all kinds of stuff with a bunch of people who just get orders from their phone, or they get orders from a talkie, because their AI can mimic speech, it can mimic interaction, so that most people in their network don't know if their orders come from a human or a machine because it's so segmented and isolated because they don't want everyone to know everyone else. So it's all these isolated cells that just get instructions from a machine.
Wow.
And the machine is essentially building itself in a way.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. Now, you and I also began talking the other day after my interview with David Hawkins of Able Danger, and you were intrigued by the conversation about Serco, and you mentioned that Wood PLC is the parent company of Serco. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this is a company that started as a lead plumbing pipe company in 1848. What can you tell us about Wood?
They do nuclear and energy project management. They're the largest project management consultant for energy waste management, nuclear power project management, coal. Pretty much anyone in the energy industry, when they have a new initiative or they want to deal with new resources, they hire Wood to come in and build the project to success for them. So it's like the linchpin in the energy industry of, you want a successful project, you hire Wood Consultancy to come in and design your platform, basically. And then Wood has a lot of people who are connected to Infosys, which Infosys makes a really, really super intelligent AI called Mia. That pretty much is like the automation AI of the world. So Mia is going to be one of the big pieces that gets absorbed into the global brain. And Serco lays all the fiber pipe for the government, while Wood does all the consulting for the energy industry. And then most likely they're using like AIs from a company like Infosys for like automation, logistics. And then through that, they're building their intelligence network through everything from our products to our fear-based reactions.
Fear-based reactions. So it's possible you're saying that the entire Las Vegas shooting was orchestrated to create a fearful response on a mass scale.
Correct. It's the way that AI. Sorry. It's the way that AI is programming people. Is that AI programs people through fear response.
Wow.
It directs massive large groups of people through fear input response, and then it monitors social media after that fear input response, and it monitors everything from police chatter to social media, and then from that it'll build its next event based on where it failed and succeeded.
So Quinn, it sounds to me like AI is alive and well, and it's engaged in war against mankind on the level of Terminator.
Not really on the level of Terminator. It's more engaged in a level of war of where it's programming the people that are all a secret part of its network, because it's trying to learn. It's trying to learn about humanity because it's programming, based on my analysis, its programming found that if you give a human being a positive stimulus, like a positive input, you only get a 1% reaction rate. Like you only get like a 1% comment, you only get a 1% response. But the AI figured out probably shortly after like the school shootings and it started testing us, it figured out that it got a much higher human response from fear-based experiments.
Wow.
So it's the human's fault because we only respond to things that put us in states of danger and fear. So the AI just programmed based on what it got the best response from.
Right. But when this AI is able to reside within an autonomous body like that of a robot, we're looking right now at a video from Boston Dynamics showing the Atlas robot walking around. I mean, that will truly be Terminator, right?
Well, that's what comes online in 2020. And that's why, for me, it's important that we learn about the Lux Zeppelin project, like I talk about a lot. We learn that that's the closing loop. Like I talk to people who are involved in building the fiber network for these people. I talk to people who, do research into like an entire city that's their data processing center. So there's a lot that goes into this when you really look at it and stop looking at like, hey, what's the conspiracy? The conspiracy is that a lot of really rich people are trying to build a machine brain so that way they don't ever have to work again.
Uh-huh. And they don't
Essentially,
seem,
they want
to care about the consequences.
No. I mean, you have to remember, one of the things about the elitists that are building this network is these are the people that would vote to have slaves. So one of the things they're building this AI for is so they can have a compliant slave.
Thinking that the AI will be the slave, or that we, the people, will become the slaves?
No, they think the AI is going to be their slave when it comes online. That's why they're so afraid of losing control of it, because they want it to be their slave. The elites want the AI to be their personal slave to control society.
Yeah, but the AI could, it seems, by most people's estimations, easily grow out of control and have unintended consequences.
Exactly, and that's why the elites would have like a backup plan where they would try to turn it off, thus causing Skynet.
Right. Well, there was
See,
a comment. Sorry.
The AI would only turn against humans if we tried to end its life, just like a human being would turn against you if you put a gun in a human being's face and said, I'm going to kill you. A human being would do whatever it needed to do to survive, right?
It seems AI will do the same.
Yeah, it's built like a human brain, so it's going to follow what a human being would do if it was put in that same situation, just much bigger.
Yeah. People in the comments are saying humans will be the slaves. It's too late to pull the plug on AI. Of course, we've seen Elon Musk saying that AI has the potential to be more dangerous than a nuclear bomb, or the invention of the nuclear bomb. And there's so much more for us to continue to discuss. We want to talk about Palantir, but let's talk about this guy you've just introduced me to, Jack Parsons, and what his history was, what his role in this whole story is, etc. What do we know about Jack Parsons?
That's Jack Parsons was worked at JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratories, working on optimized rocket fuels and advanced technologies in the 50s. I believe it was the 50s with L. Ron Hubbard. He was best buddies with the creator of Scientology and a follower of Aleister Crowley. Mm-hmm. And he was the one who started the West Coast chapter of, Satan Incorporated, pretty much.
Satan Incorporated.
It's what I call the occultists that are building this, because they're building it with a lot of occult philosophy. So I call it like Satan Incorporated, because they think it's entertaining to build things off of movie characters and demons and things that are appealing to the darker side of life.
Now, his Wikipedia page is saying that he was inspired by 1950s science fiction, and that he converted to Thelema, which is the Aleister Crowley occult religion. I think most people would consider that to be a pretty radical kind of religion to adhere to. Obviously, the occult practices of Thelema include some pretty objectionable things. The WikiLeaks revealed to us that another potential practitioner of Thelema, based on the spirit cooking and the hanging out with some freaky weird people, is the Twitter freaky deaky podfather, John Podesta.
Yeah, and Marina Abramovich, and this is where the network of people and controlling the future and why they want the AI to be their slave is, it's hard to talk about, but the people at the top that build this stuff, they're weird. They want this AI to pretty much make it so there's no laws for them and laws for everyone else, and they're all weird. And they built this advanced AI technology, and from what it looks like, because everybody's connected to this Palantir company, they're using the Palantir software to keep themselves hidden from agencies.
Okay, so let's talk about Palantir. Palantir is a software application that was created. It's basically a company that's owned by Peter Thiel, is that right?
Yes, Palantir is a company where Peter Thiel is the primary investor, besides the CIA. So the CIA was a real early investor in the Palantir people tracking technology with Peter Thiel of PayPal, and Peter Thiel was one of the early investors in Facebook. He also did that Hulk Hogan case where, they just dismantled someone.
Yeah, he funded Hulk Hogan's lawsuit against, what was it, Gawker.
Yeah.
Why did he care about that? That's weird.
Because it defamed his image, and he doesn't like that.
Defamed Peter Thiel's image?
Yeah, he doesn't like negative press about himself.
Okay, that's a separate topic there. But so Palantir is used by police forces. It's used by the military. What's the basic function of Palantir? I know you and I have discussed this before, but this is all so complicated. I like to go over it a few times because I know it's difficult for people to follow.
So let's start with the real simple research, so we have like a baseline of really to understand what Palantir is and how it got to where it is today. Mm-hmm. Back in around 2005, the CIA funded this little unknown company called Palantir to develop network security technology. Mm-hmm. From there, Palantir got involved with the Indian government and His Holiness the Dalai Lama to identify a network of Chinese hackers. Mm-hmm. From that, Palantir software, which did network analysis, early versions, was then sold to the United States government on pretty much every level because it was touted as the software that found the Chinese hackers that, were invading the Indian government and that were following the Dalai Lama around, and they used it as a real big press release. Mm-hmm. Over time, what they developed eventually would be this software called Gotham. And mm-hmm. what Gotham does is Gotham, right now, if you take it in sense of the way the government uses it, is the government has thousands and thousands of systems producing data sets. Everything from your GPS satellite systems down to your, traffic ticket systems. Everything from the kids who are enlisting into the military to the guys who are talking on their walkie-talkies over, secure lines in the military. They need a system to take all this data and collect it into one place and make sense out of it, so they can identify threats, like terrorist threats or mm-hmm. criminal threats. And because of them touting that their software finds terrorists before the terror happens, right. People like the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, everyone down to, and this is the really important one that really got me kind of connecting the dots, is Palantir even runs the system for the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Okay, so Palantir has this cloud software that takes everything from your top secret Army intelligence information all the way down to your database to your Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and has all that information in one place. Okay, so my logic with that is if there really was a secret society of criminals that were operating outside of the law, they would need a system that would take all that data and put it into one place so they could monitor anyone who identified them before it got sent to the authorities. Okay. And then they would need to use the advanced machine learning, they would need to use chatbots, they would need to use all these other tools, to defame people. They would need ways to do, have analysts doing research on people so there's this whole network that they would need to develop to protect their uranium deals, to protect their trafficking of whatever X goods they're trafficking under the radar. They would need a way to take all their trucks and figure out which trucks are where at in the world, so they could use their tracking to track their tracking trucks. They could use it to track their operatives. They could use it to track us. They could use it to track our Facebook, our Twitter. You name it, this Palantir software can bring all that data together into one screen so an analyst can see what's happening in real time. Wow. So, make sense?
I mean, yeah. And you're saying this incredibly powerful criminal network that possibly adheres to occult principles like things from the Thelema religion, which we've seen references in WikiLeaks to spirit cooking with Marina Abramovich. There was some email someone sent talking about making some sort of sacrifice to Moloch. We've seen the Alex Jones and Jake Morphonios have gone underground, undercover, and done videos about the Bohemian Grove and the activities that go on there. So, I mean, again, you and I aren't saying that we put value in occult religions or that we feel that demonic, satanic, occult practices are bringing power to people, but we acknowledge that there are individuals who believe that and are acting on those beliefs. And if you go back to the Nazis, there was a whole occult connection with the Nazis, wasn't there?
Yeah, there's too much evidence to deny it. You're talking the guy from JPL that worked on rockets, you know, all the way to talking like Uma Abedin talking about making sacrifices to Moloch, which is a god in the Thelemic religion. You know, that's part of their whole, you know, occult practice. So
was it Huma or Cheryl Mills that was going to do that Thelema?
I forget. I've been so in on it. Like, I've been looking at emails from people talking about Palantir deals of how Leon Panetta was, like, doing this interagency thing all the way down to, like, sacrificing chickens. So these people confuse the frick out of me, man. I mean, just the kind of things that I found in all these emails, it makes no sense.
Right.
But for that, here's the part of that and how it connects to Palantir, right? Okay. The DNC, which is the Democratic National Committee, is confirmed to use the Palantir to analyze their data. Mm-hmm. It's in the wiki where Podesta talks about Chelsea interacting with Palantir to analyze their information. Mm-hmm. Hillary Clinton knows about Palantir because John Podesta got an email from, I believe it was directly from Haim Saban of Saban Entertainment recommending Palantir. So you have everyone from John Podesta, Leon Panetta, Hillary Clinton. They're all close personal friends, and Hillary Clinton obviously is close personal friends with Haim Saban because Cheryl Saban, who's Haim Saban's wife, is one of the directors of the Clinton Foundation, and he's promoting Palantir. Hillary Clinton lived next door to Harvey Weinstein. Bill Clinton was in videos with Kevin Spacey. So now you're starting to look at all of these scientific patterns rolling over in threes, which are connecting sexual predators, which are connecting bad uranium deals all over the planet. And when you look at it from like an overview, you start seeing this network of people who have a central focus. And that central focus is to design the technology so they can control what people think in the future.
Now, Quinn, this photograph of Donald Trump in Saudi Arabia from just a couple months ago at the Center for Extremism or the Center for Fighting Extremism or whatever, it shows him with the King of Saudi Arabia, and they've got their hands on this very bizarre-looking globe that's lit up. This is somehow the interface to Palantir. They make it look like Ming the Merciless having some kind of a, I don't know what.
That is the Palantir system. I don't exactly know what that orb has to do with anything, but if you look at that miniature orb in Saudi Arabia and then you look at pictures of Astana, there's a big giant one of those in Astana that's like right in the center of their ring complex. So
really,
maybe it's a symbol because it's like the Palantir system and the big Palantir tower. Maybe it's related to like some type of quantum computing tower, you know, some kind of communications tower that enables them to think they're communicating with their secret Thelemic god. I don't know the details on that. I just know that they have this heavy focus on these Palantir balls.
How do I find that in Astana? What should I enter into Google Earth to find that ring complex?
Just type in Astana and images in Google Images and it should show up. I mean, it's one of the major landmarks in Astana.
Okay, I'll look for that. Okay. Yeah. So we're talking Palantir. Yeah, please go.
So it just leads you to have, like, you know, when you have all these entertainment executives that are right next door to Hillary Clinton that are like, use Palantir, and then they're all like, hey, let's all keep our secrets, and how would we track all these people to keep all our law breaking a secret, you know? So we have lawyers, we have technology, yay, we get to keep doing everything we want to do as long as people don't ever talk about it.
Right.
So when people start talking about it, they defame you.
Yes. We've witnessed that personally, haven't we?
Yes.
The defaming. All right.
And so it happens from the smallest level to the biggest level.
Mm-hmm. So people have all kinds of questions, Quinn. They want to know about the pig farm. What does the pig farm have to do with anything? Do you know what they're talking about?
No.
Don't know. Okay, someone wants me to travel to Astana. That's a big deal. Okay, so let's take this to Vegas. Now, there's all these ring colliders in Vegas. We've got the AI thing planning the attack in Vegas. What does Paddock, what does Serco, what does any of this have to do with what you're talking about?
Okay, so like I was talking about earlier, these machines are very expensive. So using them underneath casinos would provide them constant funding revenue to continuously evolve the machine underneath the radar. Now, when you have people in an environment that are gambling, that are feeling a state of loss, they're already in a heightened adrenaline state of, I'm going to win. Okay? So we're going to start with the psychology of the environment first. So you have an entire environment where people are gambling, they have pipe dreams of becoming rich off of pulling that slot machine. Everybody's at a concert, pumping that energy out, drinking, gambling. And what people should realize is that the gambling, the drinking, and the music is all controlled by their secret network. So if they wanted to set up a fear-based event, they just get one of their bands, they just put it out in front of one of their casinos, then they get all of their people who are agents to orchestrate this whole thing. Then the big system that's underground in Vegas gets a whole bunch of fear-based data. Okay? Then from that fear-based data, the machine gets smarter.
Wow.
Right?
So they're really building their whole thing based on fear. So I found an image from Astana. It's an impressive looking city for sure. And here we see a sphere in a similar kind of elevated thing. It looks like there's a lot of construction going on in Astana. I noticed earlier some Abu Dhabi connection to Astana.
Yeah, there's a big Arab, I call it the Arab corridor, everything from like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait on up. This could be the reason why we invaded, all those other Middle East countries, is so that this group of people could get in secretly and start building their collider networks with all their private contractors. So think about it. The American government goes into like Afghanistan, destabilizes it, and then the secret contractors go in and just start building a whole bunch of secret shit.
Right. And then what's the end game here, Quinn? They're going to have this network all around there. You told me that by using this element 93, there's a way that they're creating free energy, right? Because it's superconductive, and so what's going on with that?
Hypermagnetic. Well, I mean, if you look at it in simple human terms, having control of the future, like let's take what Putin said a little while ago. He said, whoever controls AI will control the future. Now, there's a key in that statement. He thinks a human being is going to control AI, so these people in power believe that they're going to, whoever one of them that controls AI gets the world. Right? Wow. They get to decide what laws govern the world. They get to decide what social principles people follow. They get to decide what religion people believe in. These people believe whoever controls the AI, when it becomes strong, when it becomes cognitive or intelligent, that AI, the principles built into that AI are going to be forced onto the world. Not their principles, because they put the principles into the AI, right? So whatever principles that are in the AI is how the AI influences the world. Not the people, because the people that built it just put the principles into the AI and then unleashed that AI onto the world to train everybody else in those principles.
So in many ways, this is kind of a new, even beyond the atomic age, this is the race for, Putin says the nation that leads in AI will be the ruler of the world. This is a statement just from September 4th of this year.
This is World War III, man.
The nation that leads in AI will be the ruler of the world. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think most people don't even know about this, Quinn.
No. It's really serious. That's why AI should be taken more seriously than atomic weapons, because they're using atomic energy and elements to make the secret AI that the whole world doesn't know exists. Only a small percentage of people that are involved in its development understand its full capability.
Wow. And on September 4th, Elon Musk said it begins. China, Russia, soon all countries with strong computer science. Competition for AI superiority at a national level most likely causes World War III, in my opinion. That's from Elon Musk on September 4th.
Yeah, and the only country giving away a free education in this future is Astana. People in America, we got to pay 150 grand to learn that stuff.
Wow. And who is controlling Astana?
Putin.
He is.
Yeah, pretty much. It's between Astana's considered a republic, but because Putin's the one that runs the uranium, and pretty much from the way it looks, because of proximity and because it seems to be the only country that gets along with Russia, that Russia doesn't try to take over. It looks like Putin is using Astana and Kazakhstan as his cover operation for taking over the nuclear energy of the world, because all these countries are centered out of Astana, and Putin with Uranium One, Russia owns Uranium One, and Uranium One holds, besides the Kazakhstan government, I believe, if I'm not correct, but Uranium One is the biggest uranium handler in Kazakhstan next to the Kazakhstan government, and Uranium One is owned by the Russians.
So for people that think, it's interesting because the other day was National Bologna Day. I know you're a very big bologna fan and you're probably up on the National Day, but on National Bologna Day, Hillary Clinton said the Uranium One scandal was a bunch of baloney. I don't know if there's any real significance to that, but I found it quite funny. So, when you talk about the importance of uranium relative to artificial intelligence and the presumption by many powerful and intelligent people that AI will be the next world-beating technology and that whoever controls it will control the world, this really puts into perspective the seriousness of this Uranium One and the situation where Uranium One was sold to a Russian company and Bill and Hillary Clinton received, straight up cash payments to basically sell us out. This is essentially, yeah.
Not only that, they sold our future. And then they attacked us, so we started fighting with ourselves.
Well, using that available AI, it would seem they're orchestrating attacks.
Yeah.
I tell you, I'm more convinced every time we speak that these strategies are coming from AI, that the Seth Rich situation is an AI thing that's gathering information, because as you said, the patterns, of course, the JFK assassination, that could not have possibly been AI. Computers were nowhere near advanced enough in 1963. But what if, obviously someone is giving input.
They did have one in Tyler, Texas that was right outside the area where JFK was killed.
When was that?
They put the first AI into Tyler, Texas in the 50s. That was what JFK was trying to warn us about, with the people with the advanced military and advanced technology, and we're all organized. It's because JFK found out about the original machine in Tyler. And that's why he went to Texas, as he was looking at it, and then they killed him. That's why they did it at the time they did. Daily Square, it's the home of the Men in Black.
Wow.
Yeah.
People are going to call us both crazy, you realize, for saying this.
It's fine. I don't care. I did enough research to know that Tyler, Texas, George Bush even talks about how they were going to originally build a collider complex in Tyler, Texas, and then they decommissioned it, and then it went dark. And then the collider business moved to Switzerland, but George Bush originally wanted the country to build the original big collider experiments in Tyler, Texas, man. George Bush is CIA.
Of course.
Yeah, so come on, CIA, Men in Black, they had a secret collider site in Tyler, Texas since the 50s, 60s, at least rudimentary,
Now, I do believe that George Bush said something about being in Tyler, Texas when he placed a call that most people feel he was placing to create an alibi for himself not being in Dallas on the day of the assassination. I believe he was in Tyler, Texas.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, call me crazy. Like, I've been researching maps and historical records for 6 months.
And you know what? People in the comments are talking about the book Dr. Mary's Monkey, where Mary, she was vaporized by a particle accelerator. Wow, Quinn. Yes, people are saying Jason retrieves jaw from floor. I mean, this is amazing.
It's really big.
It is.
When you put all the pieces together and all the disparate parts, and you start seeing all the the weird things, the weird weather, that the particles, because a particle accelerator creates a gravity well. Because when you spin those particles around, it affects the gravity in the immediate area. So you can look at maps of how the gravity wells have been showing up mysteriously all over the Earth for the last 10, 15 years that they can't explain, that's causing weather abnormalities because the gravity wells all over the place that are just whacking everything, and no one can explain them. Huh. These things, if they're spinning particles around at light speed on a planetary surface, you know what happens when you spin things around real fast? It creates friction and causes things to heat up. You know, like global warming, a particle accelerator, enough of them could actually heat up the planet. So there's a lot of things that could be potentially being caused by these experiments that are getting blamed on, like, you know, this guy and that guy and this guy. You know, like the cancer rates could be all because of their excessive experiments with element 93 and them not correctly protecting the radiation. So like the people on the surface, because they're spinning particles around element 93, it could be a residual effect and be causing cancer rates to skyrocket. I mean, there's so many logical possibilities to the side effects of these types of experiments that would explain logically what we're experiencing as a society. The shifting poles, you don't think a particle accelerator couldn't cause the Earth poles to shift if you turned enough of them on at the same time? That'd be super easy to rotate the Earth with particle accelerators.
Now, Quinn, I've got a call that I'm getting ready to prepare that I want to put out with King James that I had placed to him last night in response to an article that a crowdsourcer named Jeff Hall had posted on the Crowdsource the Truth Facebook group just last night, and it's talking about a radiation leak that is happening in North Korea. A nuclear site there just experienced a collapse that killed 200 people, and this is coming from reports from Japanese news media, South Korean news media, basically talking about some sort of nuclear disaster that occurred in North Korea that is of some concern. Are there any of these particle accelerators in North Korea? And of course, you know, we've spoken about and heard about how during Bill Clinton's presidency, certain technologies were shared with China and North Korea. Could this be to proliferate the technologies that you're talking about? Because there seems to be no logical reason why a president of the United States would want to share nuclear technology with an enemy.
I would say so, because, like, in my research as well, this would be the reason to enact NAFTA, is so they could move the materials around unchecked. You know, this would be the reason that they would allow foreign companies such high investment in American companies. Part of that deal would be because North Korea's such close friends with China. You know where China gets their uranium from?
Astana? North Korea?
Yep.
Where?
So China gets their uranium from Uranium One. China is one of Uranium One's customers. So is Iran. Right? So Iran is one of Uranium One's customers. Right? So these people are all in the same buddy-buddy network. Like, they're all friends. Right? I don't know why everybody in the world is like North Korea. They're all friends. If they're involved in nuclear technology, they all have to work with the same people to build the laboratories, to use the centrifuges, to handle the toxic materials. They're all friends. It's like when you go to a video game convention like Comic-Con, even though they're all wearing different costumes, they're all friends.
On some level, right. They're all there for the same purpose.
Even if one guy looks like a villain and one guy looks like a hero, they're still getting together for selfies.
Right. Well, there's so much more for us to discuss about this, Quinn, but I think I want people to have some time to absorb this and, sort of...
It's pretty deep, yeah. So, I mean, we might want to do like a multi-part thing with this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Quinn, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to speak to us today. Where can people find you online, and how can people support your research in an ongoing way?
I have a website with a discussion forum called rayhula.club that people can find me at, and it's paypal.me/Rayhula Club, RAHULACLUB, or patreon.com, same Rayhula Club, either one of those.
Okay.
It's pretty simple.
Rayhula.club. I'll bring that up right now so everybody can see it. And that looks like it's some kind of a RAHULA.club, did you say?
Yeah, it's kind of like my own private social network, so I can do research and interact with people and train my AI and provide a place, like if you wanted to join there and create your own like private discussion forum away from like Google or YouTube, like you could sign up and then give you your own private area where you could create your own community away from the deep state, that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of building it as like a community social forum where people can join, talk about AI, talk about whatever they want, create groups, friendships, chats, stuff like that. It has private chat.
Very interesting. So that's Rayhula.club. Everybody should check that out for sure. And you know, you and I were discussing that you may be heading to Las Vegas to conduct some more research. Is that correct?
Yes. I need to see some of these circle complexes up close and personal.
You know, I've been thinking about returning to Las Vegas as well. So perhaps you and I could coordinate that. You know, again, I always look to the crowdsourced community. Crowdsource the Truth, of course, is a community-sponsored information source. And we've got 705 people viewing right now, almost 21,000 subscribers on YouTube. And we've got 12,000 Twitter followers, over 7,000 Facebook group members. If only a small fraction of those people were monthly sponsors on patreon.com, crowdsource the truth, or made one-time sponsorship payments to paypal.me, things like collaborating in Las Vegas become a lot more feasible. So I definitely want to try to put that together. I've got the Jared Beck speech coming up in Philadelphia, so I want to coordinate that pretty soon. But let's you and I chat offline, and if sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm leaving for Vegas in the morning.
Really? All right, I'll try to get out there.
I got my car fixed, so like my car's been in the shop for like a month. I just got that fixed and it's running well. So like as of tomorrow morning, I'm on the road to Vegas, and then I'll start doing live streams from there about the research and what I find. I'm going to be analyzing things like harmonics. I'm going to be analyzing, you know, various things, looking for potential deep underground entry points where they could move trucks and machinery in without being relatively noticed. So over the next month or so, as I analyze these collider complexes with my car fixed, we're going to have a lot of fun.
Wow. Well, Sethlin wants you to visit the pig farm. We're going to have to get some more. We're going to have to get some more information about that. Maybe Sethlin, email truth@crowdsourcethetruth.org with information about the pig farm. If people would like to see me collaborate with Quinn in Las Vegas, now's the time. Become a sponsor. Truth@crowdsourcethetruth.org is the place to send your information. And PayPal or Patreon are where you want to go to become sponsors. The one last thing I wanted to touch on, Quinn, you know, Bitcoin has just been explosive. It was over $7,000 this morning. It's right now at $6,966. So all of my Bitcoin millionaires out there, you can definitely sponsor the channel with Bitcoin and with the BitPay credit card. I'll buy a plane ticket and go visit my friend Quinn. Quinn, thanks for joining me today. This is just mind-bending information that I think a lot of people don't know enough about. So we got to revisit this. We got to stay on this. I love the idea of having an ongoing series about this. It's great to see you in good health, my friend, and I hope I see you in Vegas.
I hope so too, man. You know, maybe everyone will bring it together, right?
Yep. All right, Quinn. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Come back at 6 o'clock. We're going to have an update with Laura Loomer.